Let me ask you a question. How many of you are tired of chasing the next shiny object? You know what I'm talking about? The latest hack, the newest trend, the overnight success shortcut. Everybody wants to get rich quick, but very few are willing to get rich, for sure. And the truth is, wealth doesn't come from the exciting, flashy, sexy stuff. Wealth comes from the boring business principles that most people overlook, dismiss, or ignore. But listen carefully. The very things that look boring are the exact things that can make you rich if you apply them with discipline, faith, and consistency. See, most people want excitement. They want to start a business that feels like a roller coaster. They want to post on social media, get likes, go viral, and somehow believe that virality equals profitability. But the wealthy know a secret: boring makes bank. Systems make bank. Principles make bank. Let me give you a hook right here. Wealth is not built in moments of excitement. Wealth is built in patterns of discipline. Think about it. The person who consistently follows up with prospects week after week will always outperform the one who makes a flashy pitch one time and disappears. The person who manages their money with wisdom, tracking expenses, reinvesting profits, and living by principle instead of impulse, that person will always have wealth show up in their future. But here's the problem: boring is unpopular. Boring requires patience. Boring means you have to do the work when nobody's clapping, when nobody's watching, when the results aren't instant. And most people aren't willing to do that. They confuse entertainment with success. They'd rather be excited and broke than be disciplined and rich. Let me ask you a question. How many times have you started something with fire in your belly only to let it fizzle out the moment the excitement wore off? That's the trap most people fall into. They confuse passion with perseverance. They confuse excitement with effectiveness. But here's the truth: consistency beats excitement every single time. Excitement is a spark. Consistency is the fuel. And the people who win in business, in wealth, and in life are not the ones who get excited once in a while, but the ones who show up consistently, even when it feels boring, even when no one is clapping, even when the results aren't instant. Consistency doesn't shout, but it compounds. And over time, it turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Think about it. A farmer doesn't get excited about planting one seed and then walk away expecting a harvest the next morning. He knows it takes watering, weeding, nurturing day after day. That's consistency. Most people plant a seed, get excited for a week, and when they don't see fruit, they abandon the field and chase another one. And then they wonder why they never reap a harvest. The wealthy understand that excitement gets you to plant, but consistency is what gets you to prosper. Let me put it to you this way: wealth is not built in emotional highs. Wealth is built in daily disciplines. Here's the hook: consistency doesn't ask, how do I feel today? Consistency asks, what's the assignment today? Because your feelings will betray you, but your actions will build you. You may not feel like following up with that client, but if you do it anyway, that boring follow-up could be the one that unlocks a deal worth thousands. You may not feel like reviewing your finances, But if you do it anyway, that boring financial review could be the one that prevents a massive loss. You may not feel like creating that piece of content, making that call, writing that email. But if you stay consistent, those tiny acts of faithfulness add up to a mountain of results. Let me make it plain, excitement makes you sprint. Consistency makes you win the marathon. Everyone can sprint. Everyone can get excited for 30 days. But wealth doesn't bow to sprinters. Wealth bows to marathoners. The one who keeps showing up, who keeps pushing, who keeps doing the work long after the hype is gone, is the one who wins. Success is not about what you do occasionally. It's about what you do consistently. And let me tell you this, consistency is a test. It tests whether you're serious about your dream or just flirting with it. If you only work when you're excited, you're not serious. You're seasonal. But if you keep working even when you're tired, even when it's boring, even when you don't feel like it, then you're proving that you can be trusted with more. Heaven rewards faithfulness. Scripture says, "Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season you shall reap if you faint not." Did you catch that? If you faint not, consistency means you don't faint. You keep watering, you keep sowing, you keep believing, and you keep moving forward until the breakthrough shows up. Here's the shocking part. Most people quit right before consistency was about to pay them. They put in 6 months of effort, they grind hard, they plant seeds, and then, because the harvest hasn't come, they walk away. And what they don't realize is that consistency was just about to kick in. Imagine baking bread and pulling it out of the oven just minutes before it's ready. That's what inconsistency does. It robs you of the reward that was already on the way. So I want you to remember this. Excitement feels good, but consistency does good. Excitement is an emotion. Consistency is a decision. Excitement is the ignition. Consistency is the engine. And if you're willing to keep turning the wheel day after day, even when it feels boring, you'll look back one day and realize that you didn't just outlast the hype. You outperformed everyone who quit when the excitement ran out. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a business with no structure, no systems, no order. Every day is chaos. The owner is running around like a firefighter, putting out one blaze after another, constantly reacting, never truly leading. On the outside, it looks like hustle. On social media, it looks exciting. But behind the curtain, it's exhausting, unscalable, and unsustainable. That's not business. That's bondage. Now imagine another business, maybe not as flashy, maybe not as loud, but built on systems. Processes are in place, tasks are predictable, results are measurable. It may look boring to the untrained eye, but it's this boring order that creates freedom. Systems may not excite you, but systems will liberate you. Here's the hook: chaos feels like movement, but systems create momentum. And movement without momentum is wasted energy. That's why so many people hustle for years, but never truly build wealth. They confuse activity with productivity. They're always busy, but business doesn't equal business. Wealthy people understand that systems are the secret sauce. Systems make success predictable. Systems make income reliable. Systems make growth scalable. Think about McDonald's. Is the food exciting? Not really. But what's powerful is the system. No matter where you go in the world, the fries taste the same, the burger is wrapped the same, and the process is identical. That boring consistency has created billions in revenue. Meanwhile, small restaurant owners with more talent and better recipes often fail because they don't have systems. Talent excites, but systems endure. Let's bring it closer to home. How many of you start your day without a system? You wake up, check your phone, get pulled in 10 different directions, and wonder why the day runs you instead of you running the day. If your life doesn't have a system, your life will default to chaos. If your business doesn't have a system, your business will default to stagnation. Systems give you the power to take control of your outcomes instead of leaving them up to chance. Here's the truth. Freedom doesn't come from doing everything yourself. Freedom comes from creating a system that works whether you show up or not. If your business only works when you're grinding 24/7, you don't own a business. You own a job. Systems transform your effort into assets. Systems take what you're doing manually and turn it into something that multiplies without your constant attention. That's when business stops being a burden and starts being a blessing. You might be thinking, but systems are boring. They take time. They take planning. Yes, they are boring. And yes, they take effort. But that's exactly why most people never create them. And because they never create them, they stay trapped in the cycle of hustle. They keep trading time for money, energy for survival, and freedom for frustration. But the wealthy embrace the boring. They're willing to do the hard work of building systems once so they can reap the rewards forever. Here's the hook. If your business depends on memory, you're in trouble. Memory forgets. Systems don't. Memory fails. Systems scale. And the reason most businesses stay small is because they run on memory instead of systems. The entrepreneur, he see everything in their head, and when they're gone, the business collapses. Wealthy entrepreneurs document, automate, delegate, and systematize so that the business outlives them. Let me remind you, wealth is never an accident. It is engineered, and systems are the blueprint. Systems make sure your revenue grows while your stress shrinks. Systems make sure your team knows what to do without you micromanaging. Systems make sure you're not just running a business, but building an empire. And the best part, once the system is in place, the system doesn't get tired, doesn't complain, doesn't need motivation. It just works. So here's what you must understand. Systems may not excite you in the beginning, but they will excite you when they set you free. The boring discipline of building systems today creates the exciting reality of time freedom, financial abundance, and generational wealth tomorrow. Don't chase chaos just because it feels busy. Build systems because they create freedom. Most people want more, but they don't know how to handle what they already have. They're asking for abundance while mismanaging the little that's already in their hands. And here's the truth. If you can't manage $100, you won't manage 100,000. If you can't handle one client, you won't handle 100. If you can't be trusted with what looks small, You'll never be entrusted with what looks big. Wealth is not about luck, it's about stewardship. Stewardship attracts increase. And when you learn how to steward what you have, even if it looks insignificant, you open the door for multiplication. Here's the hook: money flows to managers. Resources flow to responsibility. The universe, and even God himself, operates on this principle. Faithfulness comes before fruitfulness. When you're faithful with what's in your hand, doors open for more. But when you're reckless with what's in your hand, opportunities shut down, and you blame life, the economy, or circumstances. But the truth is, it wasn't life or the economy. It was your lack of stewardship. Think about it, the difference between the poor and the wealthy is not just money. It's mindset. The poor mindset spends everything as soon as it comes in. The wealthy mindset multiplies everything as soon as it comes in. One looks for comfort, the other looks for compound growth. One sees money as a tool to survive. The other sees money as a seed to sow. That's stewardship. And that's why wealthy people keep getting wealthier. They don't worship money, they work money. They don't chase it, they channel it. They treat money like a servant, not a master. And because they steward it well, they are trusted with more. Let me make it practical. If you earn $1,000 and you don't track it, don't plan it, and don't assign it a purpose, don't expect 10,000 to solve your problems. 10,000 will only multiply the same mismanagement. But if you can take 1,000, budget it, invest a portion, save a portion, give a portion, and still operate with discipline, then the doors of increase begin to open. It's not the amount that matters. It's the stewardship of the amount that matters. Here's another hook. Stewardship is the rehearsal for abundance. When you manage the little, you're rehearsing for the big. You're building the character, the systems, and the responsibility to handle what's coming. Most people think wealth will change them, but wealth doesn't change you. It magnifies you. If you're irresponsible with a little, you'll be even more irresponsible with a lot. If you're disciplined with a little, you'll be unstoppable with a lot. Let's take this deeper. Stewardship isn't just about money. It's about time, talent, and opportunity. If you waste hours scrolling, how will you handle the responsibility of running a multi-million-dollar enterprise? If you neglect your natural gifts, how will you maximize new ones? If you ignore opportunities because they look too small, how will you recognize the ones that look massive? Every opportunity is a test, and stewardship is how you pass. And let me remind you of something powerful. Stewardship is not sexy, it's not exciting, but it's always rewarded. Nobody's clapping when you're tracking your expenses. Nobody's cheering when you're reading contracts carefully. Nobody's celebrating when you reinvest profits instead of spending them on luxuries. But those boring acts of stewardship build the foundation for the exciting life everyone else will envy. Stewardship might look quiet, but its results will speak louder than any hype. So here's the choice. You can keep chasing more while mismanaging what you have, or you can master stewardship and let more chase you. Because when you show yourself faithful with the little, the increase doesn't come by accident. It comes by principle. And the principle is simple: stewardship attracts increase. Here's something you have to understand if you're serious about building wealth. Boring actions done consistently over time transform into breakthroughs that look miraculous. People often look at someone who's successful and say, wow, they must have had a big break. What they don't realize is that the so-called big break was nothing more than 1,000 small, boring steps compounded over time until it created a result that looked explosive. Sending one email won't change your life, but sending one email every day for a year might. Making one sales call won't make you rich, but making 100 calls every week will. The problem is, most people can't stomach the boring process long enough to see the breakthrough. Here's the hook. Boredom is the birthplace of breakthrough. And if you run from boredom, you'll always run from the very thing that leads to your abundance. Think about it like this. Compound interest is one of the most boring concepts in finance. You put money away, and for years it looks like nothing is happening. But then, over time, that boring little percentage begins to snowball until it turns into something massive. The same principle applies in business and life. Boring consistency compounds into exponential growth. Most people want explosive results without enduring the boring build up. They want the harvest without sowing in obscurity. They want the reward without the repetition. But repetition is the mother of mastery, and mastery is the father of breakthrough. Every time you repeat that boring activity, whether it's calling, writing, planning, or refining, you are stacking invisible bricks. And while it may not look like anything is happening, those bricks are forming the foundation of a structure that will one day shock everyone who doubted you. Here's the painful truth. Inconsistency resets your compounding. If you're consistent for 3 months and then quit, you don't pick up where you left off. You go back to zero. That's why most people stay stuck. They keep starting and stopping, and wondering why they never see progress. It's like pushing a heavy boulder uphill. At first, it barely moves. But if you keep pushing, the momentum begins to build, and eventually the boulder moves with its own force. But the moment you stop, the boulder rolls back, and you've got to start all over again. That's the power of compounding through consistency. It only works if you don't quit. Think about athletes. The ones who break records aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who show up to practice day in and day out, drilling the same moves, running the same plays, lifting the same weights. It looks boring to outsiders, but those repetitions become breakthroughs when the spotlight is on. Business is the same way. The entrepreneur who shows up consistently, making the calls, sending the follow-ups, tracking the numbers, is the one who eventually hits what looks like an overnight success. But in reality, there are no overnight successes, only compounded, boring actions that finally reach a tipping point. And let me say this, the boring season is a test. It tests your faith, your resilience, and your belief in the process. Can you keep sowing when nothing seems to be growing? Can you keep showing up when no one's applauding? Can you stay faithful when the results aren't instant? Because your breakthrough is not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. The harvest is guaranteed if you don't faint. So here's the hook that should stay with you. Boring is not the enemy of breakthrough. Boring is the engine of breakthrough. Every repetitive action you take is building momentum. Every disciplined step is compounding into results you can't yet see. And one day that boring process will erupt into a breakthrough so powerful that people will call it luck. People will call it timing. People will call it a miracle. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It wasn't even chance. It was boring compounded into brilliance.